Hey guys, welcome back. And if you're new here, it's really good to have you. Today we're going to take a slow, beautiful tour through Paris, France, and let it unfold like a calm little movie in your mind. You're not racing around the city or trying to squeeze everything into a checklist. You're just here to drift through it, street by street, like you've got all the time in the world. We'll wander past the big icons you've seen in photos 1,000 times, but we'll also slip into the softer details most people scroll right past. The things you only notice when you're really paying attention. Somewhere in this journey, you'll stand high above the city with the Seine curling below you, and you'll learn about a tiny hidden apartment at the top of the Eiffel Tower that most visitors never even know is there. All of it is meant to feel gentle and easy, like a good friend is just talking you through their favorite city while you sink deeper into the pillow. If you enjoy calm, cinematic travel stories like this and you want more cities to fall asleep to, you can tap like and subscribe whenever it feels right. No rush at all. I'd love it if you dropped a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now, because it's always wild seeing people in all kinds of time zones sharing the same quiet walk through the same city. You can also leave a small, kind message for someone who might find this video when they're wide awake, anxious, and wishing they could sleep, so they feel a little less alone when they scroll through the comments. Under these videos, it's become this quiet little tradition. People from all over the world checking in, sharing a city together, and just slowing down for a while. For now, you don't have to do anything but get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights, adjust your pillow or blanket, let your shoulders drop a little, and let your whole day slide gently off to the side while I guide things from here. In this journey, you'll arrive in Paris around midday, wander through the afternoon, golden hour, and evening, end up back in your hotel, getting ready for sleep. And right now, we're going to start that day by landing at the airport. As your plane begins its descent into Paris, bright midday light spills across the wing, and the runway markings at Charles de Gaulle Airport slide slowly into view below. There's the soft bump of the wheels touching down, a gentle rush of engine noise reversing, and out the window you catch low airport buildings, fuel trucks, and other planes waiting patiently along the taxiways. Inside the cabin, the overhead chime sounds. A calm voice comes over the speakers in French and then English, and you hear the small rustle of people unbuckling, stretching, and reaching up for their bags. You move from the cabin into the jet bridge, and then into the wide arrivals hall, following overhead signs marked arrivées and arrivals, passing passport control booths, a few duty-free shops, bright cafe counters, and catching a faint smell of coffee and warm pastries in the cool air-conditioned space. After your passport is checked and your bag rolls onto the carousel, you follow the stream of travelers toward the sliding glass doors, and as they open, you feel the change in the air on your face. Warmer and a little softer than inside, with clusters of people waiting, taxis lining the curb, and buses idling under big blue and white signs. You walk to the pickup area, choose a cab or rideshare into the city, settle into the back seat as the door closes with a solid, reassuring thump, and feel the car pull away from the airport, carrying you toward your hotel in Paris. From the back seat of the cab, you watch the airport roads gradually turn into wider highways, then into denser city streets, as the driver takes you toward a well-known hotel called the Pullman Paris Tour Eiffel, just a short walk from the Champ de Mars and the base of the tower. Out the window, you see green highway signs pointing toward Paris, billboards with French brands, long apartment blocks with rows of balconies, people waiting at bus stops, and the soft glare of the midday sun sliding across the glass. warmed slightly by the hum of the air conditioning in the car. As you get closer to the center, the streets narrow. The buildings feel older and more detailed. And then, in a gap between rooftops, you catch your first clear glimpse of the Eiffel Tower's iron lattice rising above everything else, like a quiet, familiar guardian. The cab pulls up to the hotel entrance, where glass doors, a neat awning, a couple of planters, and a few other guests with suitcases create that instant "you've arrived" feeling. And when you step inside, you notice polished floors, a clean reception desk, soft lobby music, and a faint scent of something like wood, citrus, and fresh linen. Check-in is smooth and simple, and soon you're in your room, noticing the neatly made bed, a small desk and chair, a soft glow from a wall lamp, and, through the window, afternoon light falling over nearby streets with a partial view of the tower or the Champ de Mars lawns. You take just a moment to drop your bag, maybe splash a little water on your face, and then you're back out through the lobby and out the front doors into the early afternoon, standing on a Parisian sidewalk and ready to properly start exploring the city. Stepping out of the hotel, you feel that first real moment of being in Paris hit you as the door closes softly behind you. The street outside is calm but alive, with cars rolling past, scooters weaving gently through traffic, and a few people wheeling small suitcases along the sidewalk. When you look up the street, the Eiffel Tower appears between the buildings, its iron lattice rising in a quiet, familiar shape that somehow feels both larger and softer than it does in photos. As you start walking toward it, you notice the textures around you. Pale stone facades with balconies, small shops with awnings, and cafe tables where people lean in over coffee and simple lunches. There's a light warmth in the air, the kind where you can feel the sun on the top of your shoulders. And every now and then, a small breeze slips past, carrying a mix of coffee, distant traffic, and something sweet from a nearby bakery. With each block, the tower grows clearer above the rooftops, and it feels like you're slowly walking into one of those postcard images. Only this time it's quiet and personal, just you taking your time. After a few minutes, you reach the edge of the Champ de Mars, the long stretch of lawns that stretches away from the base of the Eiffel Tower like a soft green carpet. You step through an opening in the fence and onto the wide path, seeing people scattered across the grass on blankets, friends taking photos, families pointing up at the tower, and couples sitting shoulder to shoulder on benches. The tower itself rises directly ahead, its 4 massive legs planted at the corners of a square. And from this angle, you can really see the delicate pattern of crossed iron beams that hold the whole structure together. To one side, you notice a snack stand with simple sandwiches, bottled water, and small ice creams. And for a second, the air smells faintly of warm waffles and sugar before the breeze shifts again. You take a slow moment just to stand there on the path, letting your eyes travel from the base of the tower all the way up to the tiny platform at the top, where you'll be looking down over the city before too long. Then, when you're ready, you start walking toward the base, moving with the quiet flow of visitors heading for the security lines and the entrance beneath the iron legs. As you draw closer, the space under and around the tower feels almost like a small open-air plaza, with each of the 4 legs anchored by wide stone bases and small signs explaining how the structure was designed for the 1889 World's Fair. You move toward the security area, passing through a simple bag check and metal detector, with staff guiding people forward in a steady, practiced rhythm that feels calm rather than rushed. Beyond the security point, you see ticket windows and self-service machines, and one of the signs explains the difference between tickets that go only to the 2nd floor and those that continue all the way up to the summit. Near one of the bases, there's a bronze plaque honoring Gustave Eiffel and the engineers who calculated the wind forces and stresses on the iron beams. A small reminder that this light-looking structure is the result of very exact science. You notice a modest statue of a woman holding a torch, representing liberty and progress, placed here to echo the idea of France presenting the Statue of Liberty to the United States. And it adds a quiet thread of history to the space. With your ticket in hand, you follow the signs toward the elevator entrance inside one of the legs, feeling the texture of the iron framework and the cool shade it casts as you step into the waiting area with a small group of other visitors. When the elevator arrives and the doors slide open, you step inside, feel the gentle jolt as it starts to move, and watch as the ground drops away through the window in a smooth diagonal climb along the leg of the tower. The grid of iron beams shifts around you like a slow-motion puzzle. And then the doors open again onto the first level, where you walk out into a bright, open platform wrapped with railings and small displays. You walk over to the edge, resting your hands on the cool metal of the railing, and look out over the Champ de Mars lawns, stretching out in long rectangles of green, with tree-lined paths and small side gardens branching away. To your left, you can see the Seine, the river that winds through central Paris, with its stone embankments, arched bridges, and boats moving slowly along the water. Across the river, you spot the Trocadéro gardens, with their wide steps and fountains arranged in long pools, designed as a grand viewpoint that looks directly back at the tower. On this level, there's also a section of glass floor, where you can look straight down at the people moving below, and as you step onto it, you feel a brief flutter in your stomach that fades quickly into quiet fascination as you watch the tiny figures crossing underneath you. When you're ready to go higher, you find the next elevator and step inside again, feeling a slightly cooler breath of air as you rise toward the upper viewing platforms. The summit level is more compact and enclosed, with windows lining the edges, and you walk slowly around the space, noticing a small reconstruction of Gustave Eiffel's private office, with wax figures of Eiffel and Thomas Edison meeting by a desk, a reminder that this height was once a working laboratory and receiving station. You pause at a window and look out over the city, picking out the golden dome of Les Invalides, where Napoleon's tomb is kept, the wide grey ribbon of the Seine, the long straight line of the Champs-Élysées heading toward the Arc de Triomphe, and farther away on a hill, the white domes of Sacré-Cœur and Montmartre. Somewhere nearby, a small champagne bar serves tiny glasses to visitors celebrating their visit, and there's a soft murmur of voices in different languages blending into a single low, pleasant background hum. You notice how the breeze feels slightly cooler up here, even with the city in early afternoon sunlight, and you imagine how different this view will look later, when the sky turns warmer and the streetlights begin to spark on below. For now, you simply let yourself stand there, breathing slowly, knowing that after you descend, you still have the whole rest of the day to wander at ground level through these streets and along the river that's waiting quietly beneath you. After a last slow look over the rooftops of Paris from the summit, you let your eyes trace the curve of the Seine, the straight lines of the avenues, and the tiny ant-like movement of people down on the Champ de Mars. You take in the way the golden dome of Les Invalides catches the light, how the grey ribbon of the river bends past the Île de la Cité, and how Sacré-Cœur sits like a white crown on its hill in Montmartre. There's a small part of you that files these shapes away, knowing you might spot them again later from street level, when the city is closer and softer. When you're ready, you step back from the window, walk toward the elevator, and join the quiet little cluster of visitors waiting with you. The doors open with a gentle chime. You step inside and feel the slight sway as the car begins its smooth descent through the iron framework. As the cabin drops and levels, the city slowly rises to meet you again, bringing you back down into the middle of the day. You step out onto one of the lower viewing levels, where the space opens into a wider outdoor platform lined with railings and a few small exhibits tucked along the walls. Here the air feels a little warmer again, and when you walk to the edge and rest your hands on the railing, you can hear the faint mix of street sounds drifting up. Car horns in the distance, people laughing, the soft clatter of dishes from cafes below. A nearby panel explains how the tower's iron expands and contracts with temperature, and you run your fingers lightly over a small diagram showing how the structure can shift slightly in the heat and cold. You watch a child press both hands flat against the glass floor section, staring down in amazement at the people passing far beneath. And the scene makes the whole place feel more human and relaxed. After another slow walk around the platform, you follow the signs toward the elevator that returns you to the ground, joining a small group of people who seem just as quietly content as you are. The elevator ride down feels quicker, and when the doors open, you step back into the open air beneath the tower, where the light feels brighter and the sounds of the city feel pleasantly close again. Under the arching legs of the tower, you pause for a moment to look straight up, watching the iron beams crisscross overhead like a careful drawing against the pale sky. Around you, people are taking photos from every angle, some lying on the ground to fit the whole structure into a single frame, others pointing upward while someone else snaps the picture. Off to one side, you notice a modest statue of Gustave Eiffel, hands clasped behind his back, looking up at his own creation as if he's still inspecting it. Nearby, a small plaque explains how controversial this tower was when it was first built, and how many artists and writers thought it would ruin the beauty of Paris before it slowly became its most famous symbol. You move back through the secure area, following signs that lead you out toward the Champ de Mars and toward the bridge that crosses the river to the Trocadéro, letting the flow of people carry you in a gentle, unhurried way. As you leave the base of the tower behind you and walk toward the edge of the park, you already know you'll see it again soon from a completely different angle. Reaching the Pont, the bridge that links the tower side of the Seine to the Trocadéro gardens, you step onto the wide sidewalk and start across. On one side, you see boats moving slowly along the water, some with open decks where people sit at small tables, cameras resting on the railings as they drift under the arches of other bridges. On the other side, the embankments are lined with stone walls, trees, and stairs leading down to the river level, where you spot a few people sitting on the edge with their feet dangling, just watching the boats go by. A faint smell of roasted chestnuts reaches you from a small cart set up near the bridge entrance, the scent mixing with the slightly cooler air that hangs over the river. The traffic hums steadily at your back, but the sound feels distant and soft, more like a steady backdrop than anything sharp or distracting. As you look ahead, you see the long stairs and terraces of the Trocadéro rising in front of you, laid out like wide steps in a quiet outdoor theatre facing the tower. On the far side of the bridge, you climb slowly up toward the Trocadéro terraces, passing the long pools and fountains of the Jardin du Trocadéro that stretch between the river and the steps. The fountains are quiet right now, or running at a low, steady flow, sending thin arcs of water into the pools where the tower reflects in soft, rippling patterns. As you climb higher, statues come into view along the edges of the terraces, simplified human figures in bronze and stone, some standing, some seated, symbolizing things like work, youth, and friendship without saying a word. You reach the main upper terrace and turn to face the Eiffel Tower again. And this time, the view feels complete. The tower perfectly centered, the Champ de Mars lawns laid out beneath it, the river in between, acting like a calm, dividing line of light. People around you are leaning on the stone balustrade, chatting quietly, taking photos, and for a moment you just stand there with them, part of this small, temporary crowd that's all here for the same gentle reason. You can already imagine how this exact view will change later, when the sky turns warmer and the tower lights flicker on, and you tuck that image away like a promise for the evening. For now, though, the day is still firmly in the afternoon, and you're content to let the view sink in slowly, with the sun still high enough that shadows are short and clear. You take a slow walk along the terrace, passing a few street artists sketching the tower in charcoal and ink, their drawings clipped to simple boards that flutter slightly in the breeze. At one corner, you notice a small plaque marking a liberation parade that once passed through this area in 1944, a reminder that this calm viewpoint has seen moments of huge emotion and history. You let your fingertips brush lightly over the stone railing as you walk, feeling how smooth it is from years of hands resting in this same spot, all pausing to take in the same view you're looking at now. When you're ready to move on, you gently turn away from the tower and begin to head back down the steps, following signs that lead toward the riverbanks where walkways run close along the Seine. As you descend, you know that the afternoon is still open ahead of you and that there's plenty of quiet time left to follow the water. Find a gentle rhythm in your steps and let the city unfold one calm stretch at a time. As you reach the bottom of the Trocadéro steps, the sounds of the terrace fade a little, and the steady murmur of the Seine draws you back toward the bridge. You follow a small sign pointing to the riverbank paths and take a sloping walkway down, feeling the ground gently tilt under your feet as the traffic noise above grows softer. Down here, the air feels a touch cooler, brushed by the water, and you can smell a light mix of river, stone, and the faint sweetness of something frying at a nearby snack stand. Boats are moored along the quay, some with wide open decks and rows of chairs for sightseeing cruises. Others smaller and quieter, bobbing slightly against their ropes. A couple leans together on a low wall, sharing a paper cone of fries, while a group of friends sit cross-legged on the edge, passing around a small camera and laughing every time someone blinks at the wrong moment. You take a slow breath, let your shoulders drop just a little more, and start walking along the water in the direction of the next bridge, letting your steps find a calm, easy rhythm. As you move along the river, the Eiffel Tower stays behind you for a moment, then appears again at a slight angle whenever the path curves or the trees thin out. On your right, you see the stone embankment rising up toward the main road, lined with lampposts and stairways that lead back to street level, each one marked with a small metal sign giving the name of the quay. On your left, the Seine slides past with a slow, steady current, its surface broken by ripples from passing boats and occasional reflections of white clouds drifting across the blue afternoon sky. You pass a small kiosk selling simple souvenirs, postcards with night views of the tower, keychains shaped like tiny arches, and magnets showing the river under a sunset sky. A quiet bench sits in a patch of shade beneath a tree, and you take a moment to sit down, feeling the slight roughness of the wood under your hands and the coolness of the shadow wrapping around you. From here, the whole scene feels almost like a moving painting. People strolling, boats gliding, and the distant outline of domes and spires stacking themselves gently on the far bank. After a short rest, you stand up again and continue along the path until you reach the underside of the Pont de l'Alma. a wide bridge that carries both cars and pedestrians across the river. Up above, you can hear the muted thrum of engines and occasional footsteps, but down here by the water, it all blends into a soft, steady background sound. Near one of the bridge supports, a discreet plaque and small display explain the story of the Zouave statue that stands beside a bridge pier, a uniformed soldier figure used by Parisians as an informal gauge for the level of the Seine during floods. You walk a little closer to see him, noting his folded arms, the careful detail in his coat, and the way the waterline on the stone below him shows where the river has risen in the past. A tour boat passes underneath the bridge while you're there, its recorded commentary drifting up in a mix of French and English, pointing out monuments that line the river just ahead. Hearing that list of names, bridges, palaces, and museums, you feel a spark of quiet curiosity for what's around the next bend, and you turn to follow the river in that same direction. As the path opens up again, the buildings on the far bank start to change, and soon you can see the ornate shapes of the Grand Palais and the Petit Palais appearing ahead, their glass roofs and sculpted facades rising above the trees. On your side of the river, a few more steps bring you closer to the Pont Alexandre III, the famously decorated bridge that links the Invalides area with the Champs-Élysées side. Even from a distance, you can make out its tall stone pillars, topped with gilded statues of winged horses, and figures representing France's golden age, catching the sun in soft flashes of metallic light. As you approach, the details sharpen. Iron street lamps with curled arms, carved garlands along the railings, and oval plaques showing masks and shells that nod to river goddesses and sea themes. You walk up the gently sloping ramp to the bridge level, and as you step onto it, you feel the surface change under your feet, from the smoother river path to solid, slightly worn stone. The breeze is a little more noticeable here in the open, brushing your face as you look back toward the Eiffel Tower on one side and ahead toward the golden dome of Les Invalides on the other. You take your time crossing Pont Alexandre III, pausing near the center where the views open fully in both directions along the Seine. Downriver, you can see the outline of distant bridges and the suggestion of the Île de la Cité sitting in the middle of the water, while upriver, the Eiffel Tower stands clearly, framed now by the soft afternoon light and the gentle curve of the river. On the bridge itself, people wander slowly from one side to the other, stopping to photograph the lampposts, the gilded statues, and the reflections of the city in the water below. A musician has set up near one of the stone pillars, playing a slow, familiar tune on the violin, the notes drifting lazily across the roadway and blending with the murmur of quiet voices. You lean against the railing for a moment, resting your forearms on the cool metal, and let yourself just exist here, without any pressure to move on quickly or tick off the next sight. When you finally turn away, you know that the rest of the afternoon is gently waiting for you on the far side of the bridge, where the wide open space of the Esplanade des Invalides and the path toward the Champs-Élysées will carry your steps a little further into the heart of Paris. As you step off Pont Alexandre III onto the far bank, the sound of the violin slips behind you, and the space opens into a wide stretch of green called the Esplanade des Invalides. Ahead, the lawns spread out in long rectangles, crisscrossed by sandy paths where people stroll, jog, or sit on the grass in small clusters. At the far end, the golden dome of the Hôtel des Invalides catches the afternoon light, shining softly above the long classical facades that once housed veterans of France's armies and now hold museums and a famous tomb. Cars glide along the roads on either side of the green, but from the center path, the city feels strangely calm. like a big, open breath in the middle of dense streets. You start down one of the central walkways, hearing the crunch of gravel under your shoes, passing benches where locals scroll on their phones or chat quietly with friends. A light breeze moves across the open space, carrying the scent of cut grass and a faint hint of warm stone from the surrounding buildings. As you draw closer to the Golden Dome, the long wings of the Hôtel des Invalides resolve into rows of tall windows, arched doorways, and carved stone details that give the whole complex a formal, steady feeling. A nearby sign explains that this place was created in the 17th century as a residence and hospital for wounded soldiers, and that today it houses the Army Museum and the resting place of Napoleon Bonaparte beneath that glowing dome. You pass through a wide gate into the main courtyard, where the space is framed by arcades on all sides, each arch casting a regular pattern of shadow and light onto the pale ground. In the center, a simple open area is lined with old cannons, their metal surfaces darkened by age, each resting on a low base with a small plaque explaining when and where it was used. The air inside the courtyard feels slightly cooler and more still than out on the lawns, and your footsteps echo softly as you cross from one side to the other. You don't need to rush into every museum room today. Instead, you let the architecture itself do the talking, staying for just a few moments to feel the weight of history before drifting back out toward the sunlight. Stepping back onto the esplanade, the light feels a little warmer now, hinting that the afternoon is slowly moving along, even though there's still plenty of time before evening. You follow a side path that leads diagonally toward the Seine again, passing a small group practicing gentle yoga on the grass, and another person sketching the dome in a notebook balanced on their knees. At one corner of the lawn, a simple stone monument with an engraved plaque honors resistance fighters from World War II, its clean lines and careful lettering standing modestly among the trees. You pause long enough to read a few names, then continue on, letting the sound of passing bicycles and distant church bells wash through the air around you. Street signs on the nearby intersection point toward the Champs-Élysées and Place de la Concorde, quietly laying out the next steps of your walk without you needing to think about it too much. With the river close by and those names on the signs, you let your feet follow the easiest route, knowing you're gradually curving toward one of the most famous avenues in the world. The path brings you down toward the Quai d'Orsay, where the sidewalk runs along the river, with elegant stone buildings on one side, and the steady flow of the Seine on the other. You walk past the long facade of the Musée d'Orsay across the river, its big clock and former railway station arches visible on the opposite bank, like a reminder that Paris constantly repurposes its old spaces. Here on your side, trees line the quay, their leaves casting patches of shade on the pavement, and every so often, a set of stone steps leads down to lower walkways or small mooring points. The air smells faintly of traffic, mixed with something sweeter from a nearby cafe, where a server is carrying a tray of espresso cups out to a small outdoor table. You hear the clink of porcelain and the low hum of conversation as you pass, the sounds soft enough that they feel more like part of the background music of the city than anything demanding your attention. A little farther ahead, you see the Pont de la Concorde crossing the river, its stone arches leading directly toward a wide open square that you recognize from photos even before you reach it. Crossing Pont de la Concorde, you glance back along the river and see how the city you've already walked through forms a quiet panorama. Tower, dome, and bridges all lined up like calm markers of the path you've taken. When you step off the bridge, the space opens suddenly into the Place de la Concorde, a broad square paved in pale stone and threaded with careful patterns of traffic, fountains, and monuments. At its center stands the tall pinkish obelisk from Luxor, covered in hieroglyphs that once stood in front of an ancient temple in Egypt, now ringed by modern lampposts and two ornate fountains with bronze figures representing rivers and seas. Around the edges, you can see the long classical facade of the Hôtel de Crillon and nearby buildings on one side, and straight ahead, the beginning of the Champs-Élysées, stretching away in a long, tree-lined perspective toward the Arc de Triomphe. The square is busy, but not overwhelming. Cars looping around, pedestrians waiting at crosswalks, and clusters of visitors pausing to take photos of the obelisk with the Eiffel Tower peeking out from behind distant rooftops. Standing on the edge of the square, you can already picture yourself walking up that legendary avenue as the afternoon slowly softens into golden hour. But for now, you simply take a slow breath, feel the gentle weight of the day on your shoulders, and let Paris hold you exactly where you are. From the edge of Place de la Concorde, you take one more slow look at the Luxor obelisk, its carved hieroglyphs catching the light, while the fountains around it send gentle splashes into the air. Straight ahead, the Champs-Élysées stretches out in a long, inviting line, framed by rows of trees that form a kind of soft tunnel toward the distant Arc de Triomphe. You wait at a crosswalk with a small group of people, listening to the rhythmic rush of cars looping around the square and the quiet beep of the pedestrian signal. When the light changes, you cross onto the beginning of the avenue, where wide sidewalks and neat gravel paths split around small patches of grass and statues. A sign lets you know you're entering the lower part of the Champs-Élysées, where gardens and small pavilions ease you into the more commercial stretch up ahead. As you start walking, it feels less like a busy road and more like a long park that just happens to have a famous name. On either side, the Jardin des Champs-Élysées open out in green pockets, with trees, flower beds, and quiet side paths leading towards small ponds and tucked-away benches. You pass a simple kiosk selling crepes and soft drinks, and the air briefly fills with the smell of hot batter, sugar, and a little bit of melted chocolate as someone carries away a folded crepe in a paper wrapper. A little farther along, you glimpse the curved facade of the Théâtre Marigny tucked among the trees, its entrance marked by posters for current plays and a discreet awning. Near a shallow fountain, children trail sticks or fingers through the water, while adults sit on green metal chairs, tilted back just enough to catch the sun. You take a short detour down one of the side paths, enjoying how the city noise softens as you step a little deeper into the trees, the crunch of gravel under your shoes becoming the main sound. When you loop back to the main avenue, the Arc de Triomphe looks a bit closer, framed neatly at the end of the straight line of trees and buildings. As you move into the upper part of the Champs-Élysées, the atmosphere shifts slightly, becoming more like the iconic boulevard you've seen in photos and films. The sidewalks here are broad and busy, lined with a mix of flagship stores, cafes with glass fronts, and cinemas with bright but not overwhelming signage. You pass a high-end car showroom where sleek vehicles sit under spotlights, their polished surfaces reflecting the movement of people outside. Next door, a cafe terrace stretches along the sidewalk, with small round tables, wicker chairs, and people facing the street the way Parisians often do, watching the flow of the city as steadily as they sip their drinks. The sun is still high enough to feel warm on your face, but you can tell it's starting to tilt just a bit, making the shadows from the trees and awnings slightly longer on the pavement. You walk at an easy pace, not trying to keep up with anyone, just letting the rhythm of the avenue carry you steadily toward the arch at the far end. As you get closer, the Arc de Triomphe grows steadily larger, rising above the traffic circle at Place Charles de Gaulle, like a solid stone gate at the meeting point of 12 avenues. Its massive pillars are carved with reliefs showing soldiers, allegorical figures, and scenes from battles tied to the Napoleonic era, each one more detailed the nearer you get. When you reach the base, you follow the signs down into the pedestrian underpass, leaving the traffic rush behind as you descend a short flight of stairs and walk through a quiet tunnel tiled in light colors. Emerging in the center of the roundabout, you find yourself directly beneath the arch, where you can see the names of battles and generals carved into the stone in long, careful lists. At ground level, you notice the tomb of the unknown soldier, marked by a simple bronze shield and an eternal flame that burns steadily as people walk past in respectful silence. For a moment, the busy avenue you just walked feels far away, and this spot becomes a still point where the city's history, memory, and everyday life all cross paths. You decide to go up, following the marked entrance that leads inside the arch, and then into a winding staircase that climbs between the thick stone walls. The steps are steady and regular, and you take them at an easy pace, feeling the cool air and occasionally pausing to glance through small openings that give hints of the view waiting at the top. When you reach the rooftop terrace, the space opens suddenly into a clear, wide platform, guarded by railings and low walls, with viewing tables that point out the main landmarks. From here, the city stretches in every direction. The Champs-Élysées runs straight behind you toward Place de la Concorde. The Eiffel Tower rises to one side above the river. The La Défense business district stands in the distance with its modern glass towers, and the white dome of Sacré-Cœur sits on its hill far away in Montmartre. The light has shifted a little more now, softening just enough that you can imagine how golden it will become later, when the sun drops lower and the streets below start to glow. For now, you simply stand, breathing slowly, letting this new view sink in on top of all the others you've collected today, knowing that when you go back down, the rest of the afternoon will still be waiting patiently at street level for you to continue your calm walk through Paris. When you've had your fill of the rooftop view, you take one last slow turn around the terrace, letting the panorama fix itself in your mind. Then you find the staircase entrance again and begin the steady walk back down inside the arc, feeling the cool stone and the echo of your own footsteps in the narrow space. The spiral brings you back to the lower level, where a small gallery outlines the arch's history, but you drift through at your own pace, catching a detail here and there without needing to study everything. Soon, you're back at ground level by the tomb of the unknown soldier, where the eternal flame burns quietly while visitors pause, take a breath, and then continue on. You return through the pedestrian underpass and emerge onto the sidewalks around the roundabout, where cars circle in a careful, constant loop and streets branch away like spokes from a wheel. Rather than heading straight back down the Champs-Élysées, you choose a side avenue that looks a little calmer, letting the flow of the city ease into something softer as late afternoon begins to settle in. The avenue you follow, Avenue Carnot, is lined with tall houseman-style buildings, their cream-coloured facades punctuated by dark iron balconies and tall windows. Shops here feel more everyday than glamorous. Small bakeries, neighbourhood pharmacies, and corner groceries with crates of fruit and vegetables stacked neatly outside. On the sidewalk, people walk dogs, carry shopping bags, or chat quietly near building entrances, and the pace feels more like a lived-in neighbourhood than a postcard scene. You pass a bakery just as someone opens the door from inside, and a wave of warm air escapes, carrying the smell of fresh bread and something buttery and sweet that lingers in the air for a moment. Farther along, a florist has buckets of flowers set out on the pavement, tulips, roses, and simple bundles of greenery that add spots of colour against the pale stone walls. You don't need to buy anything or go anywhere specific here. You're just walking, letting this quieter side of Paris show itself to you at its own unhurried pace. After a few blocks, a small cafe on the corner catches your eye, with a row of outdoor tables and a simple sign above the door that feels welcoming rather than flashy. You choose an empty table, pull out the lightweight chair, and sit facing the street like everyone else, letting the movement of the avenue become your evening entertainment. A server arrives with an easy, practiced smile, and before long, there's a cup of coffee or tea in front of you, maybe a small pastry on the side, resting on a plain white saucer. The surface of the drink ripples slightly when a bus passes by, and the tiny sound of the cup touching the saucer feels surprisingly grounding. A small, clear noise amid the low murmur of conversation. Inside the cafe, you can see a short counter with a glass case of tarts and slices of cake, a chalkboard listing the day's specials, and a few regulars leaning on the bar, chatting quietly with the staff. You take your time, sipping slowly, watching the light outside soften just a little, and you can feel that gentle shift when afternoon edges quietly toward the beginning of evening. When you're finished, you leave a few coins on the small tray for the server, push your chair back in, and step out again onto the sidewalk, feeling a little more settled than before. You follow the map on your phone or the street signs back toward Place Charles de Gaulle, where the Arc de Triomphe sits like an anchor in the middle of converging avenues. Near one corner of the roundabout, you find the entrance to the metro station, Charles de Gaulle Étoile, marked by a simple sign and a set of stairs leading underground. As you descend, the sounds of traffic trade places with the low rumble of trains and the faint echo of announcements drifting along tiled corridors. You buy a ticket, pass through the turnstile, and follow the signs for Line 2 toward Anvers, the route that curves around the north of the city in the direction of Montmartre. On the platform, you wait with a small group of commuters and other visitors, watching the digital sign tick down the minutes until the next train. The pause giving you another small pocket of calm in the middle of the day. 45 minutes. When the train arrives, its doors slide open with a soft chime, and you step into a carriage painted in simple colors, finding a spot to stand or sit near the door. The train pulls away in a smooth, steady motion, and you feel the gentle sway as it passes through stations like Turns and Courcelles. The names announced in a clear voice and displayed on simple signs outside the windows. Inside, people scroll on their phones, read small paperbacks, or stare absently at the ads above the seats, and the whole car feels wrapped in that neutral, in-between quiet that fills public transport in big cities. After a short ride, the recorded voice announces Anvers, and you step off, following the exit signs up through stairways and corridors toward the street. You emerge onto Boulevard de Rochechouart, near the base of the hill of Montmartre, where souvenir shops, cafes, and the beginning of a long slope hint at the climb that leads up to the white Basilica of Sacré-Cœur. The light here already feels a touch more golden, brushing the facades and the hill in a way that promises a soft, glowing evening ahead, with wide views waiting for you just a little higher up. Stepping out of the Anvers metro station, you find yourself in a busier buzz of sound and colour at the base of the Montmartre hill. Directly ahead, Rue de Steinkerk stretches upward in a gentle slope lined with souvenir shops, fabric stores, and little stalls selling Eiffel Tower keychains, snow globes, and striped shirts. Above the rooftops, at the far end of the street, You can already see the white domes of the Basilique du Sacré-Cœur, sitting high on the hill like a quiet lookout over the city. As you begin walking, the sidewalk feels a little more crowded, with visitors moving in both directions. Street vendors arranging neatly folded scarves, and the soft murmur of many languages weaving together around you. The air smells faintly of grilled sandwiches and warm crepes from nearby counters, blended with the occasional whiff of roasted nuts from a small cart on the corner. You move at your own pace, not trying to push past anyone, just letting the slope and the sight of the basilica gently pull you forward step by step. At the top of the shopping street, the view suddenly opens into a small square where the hill rises more steeply, and you see the wide stone steps leading up toward the basilica, as well as the glass-sided cars of the Montmartre funicular. To one side, a small carousel turns slowly with painted horses and soft music, kids laughing in bursts that float on the breeze before fading again into the general hum. People pause here to take photos, adjust backpacks, or decide whether to ride the funicular or climb the stairs. The whole scene feeling like a calm little pause before the final part of the ascent. You choose the steps, placing your hand on the smooth stone of the railing, and start to climb in short, steady segments that give you chances to stop and look back without feeling rushed. Each time you turn around, the city seems to stretch a little farther out, with more rooftops, more treetops, and the faint suggestion of the Seine flattening into a silvery strip in the distance. The late afternoon light has started to soften now, warming the stone under your feet and giving everything, a railing, a rooftop, a faraway dome, a gentle golden edge. By the time you reach the top of the main staircase, you find yourself on the broad terrace in front of Sacré-Cœur, where people sit in rows along the steps facing the view like they're watching a slow, silent performance. The basilica behind you is bright and pale, its white travertine stone designed to stay light even in city air, with rounded domes and simple arches that give it a slightly otherworldly shape against the sky. Closer to the entrance, you notice two large bronze equestrian statues, one of King St. Louis and one of Joan of Arc, each riding calmly above the crowd on tall stone pedestals. Down below, the city spreads out in a wide, detailed map of rooftops and streets, with landmarks like the Centre Pompidou, the Pantheon, and distant towers pricking the horizon line in subtle ways you can pick out one by one. A street musician plays guitar or accordion somewhere on the steps, the melody drifting up and mingling with scattered applause, low conversations, and the occasional soft click of a camera shutter. You sit for a moment among the others, letting your breathing match the gentle rhythm of the music and the slow shift of light over the city, feeling as if Paris is quietly settling itself for the evening right in front of you. When you're ready, you turn toward the basilica itself and join the slow-moving line that curls toward the main entrance, where signs ask for quiet and request that visitors avoid photography inside. Crossing the threshold, the outside noises fall away, replaced by the soft echo of footsteps on stone and the low murmur of whispered prayers and hushed, respectful voices. The interior is wide and high, with a central nave leading toward the altar and a huge mosaic of Christ in blue and gold tiles arching over the apse, its colors glowing softly in the gentle interior light. Along the side aisles, small chapels are set into the walls, each with statues of saints, burning candles, and simple plaques explaining who is honored there and what scenes the carved figures represent. You walk slowly around the space, following the curve of the walls, noticing the smell of candle wax and a faint trace of incense that lingers in the air, like a quiet reminder of how many people have stood here before you. You don't need to stay long or do anything special. It's enough just to let the calm settle into you for a few minutes, before you step back outside into the cooler, gradually dimming light on the hill. Outside again, the sky has shifted a little more, the blue deepening at the top while the remaining sunlight brushes the buildings and the edges of the clouds in warmer tones. Instead of going straight back down the main steps, you drift around the side of the basilica and follow a narrow street into the heart of Montmartre, where cobblestone lanes curl between low buildings with shuttered windows and small balconies. You soon arrive at Place du Tertre, a small square known for its artists, where easels are set up in neat rows, canvases show scenes of Paris streets and landmarks, and painters quietly work on portraits or cityscapes as people wander past. The smells here are a mix of simple restaurant dishes, garlic and herbs from an open doorway, butter sizzling in a pan, and the occasional hint of something sweet drifting out from a creperie on a side street. At one corner of the square, a plaque on a wall explains how this area has long been a meeting place for artists, mentioning names like Picasso and Utrillo, who once lived and worked in this hilltop neighborhood, even though the square feels gentler and more touristy now. You let yourself weave slowly through the space, not needing to buy anything or rush, just enjoying the feeling of the neighborhood as the day eases toward evening and the city begins to glow a little more with each passing minute. As you wander away from Place du Tertre, the sounds of clinking plates and low conversation blend into a soft background hum that follows you down the narrow lanes. The buildings here feel a little more intimate, with peeling paint, small balconies full of plants, and hand-painted signs above doors that look like they've been there for decades. You pass a tiny shop selling nothing but postcards and prints of old Montmartre scenes, the doorway framed by strings of small lights that are just starting to glow as the daylight tilts toward evening. The cobblestones under your feet are uneven but steady, and you find yourself watching your step just enough that your walking pace naturally slows down. Above the rooftops, the sky is shifting into a softer blue, with the first hints of warmer tones brushing the undersides of the clouds. Every now and then, when a street opens toward the edge of the hill, you catch a glimpse of the city below, starting to take on that gentle, pre-sunset glow. You follow a slightly quieter street and find yourself in front of a small square with trees, benches, and a simple stone fountain at its center, the water bubbling gently into a circular basin. A plaque on one of the nearby buildings mentions that some of these streets once bordered vineyards and windmills, hinting at the time when Montmartre was more like a village outside the city than a neighborhood inside it. Just beyond, you spot one of the surviving windmills, the Moulin de la Galette, its wooden structure perched above a restaurant entrance, reminding you that this hill has been a place of gatherings and evenings out for a very long time. The restaurant's outdoor terrace is already filling up, but the noise stays low, just a soft layering of voices, cutlery, and occasional laughter that never feels harsh or jarring. The air carries the smell of something cooking with butter and garlic, mixed with the subtler scent of damp stone cooling from the day's warmth. You let the square hold you for a moment, standing still while the city slowly shifts gears around you without asking anything in return. Continuing along, you follow a gentle slope that curves around the hill, bringing you past small galleries with paintings propped in doorways and cafe windows decorated with handwritten menus. One gallery has a display of black and white photographs showing Montmartre in earlier decades. Empty streets, old Citroën cars, bundled up cafe waiters, and the contrast with the present-day scene outside gives you a quiet sense of continuity rather than loss. Nearby, a narrow staircase drops steeply between buildings, with a metal handrail running down one side, and lampposts spaced along the descent like markers in a slow rhythm. You pause at the top to look down, noticing how the steps lead your eye toward a lower street, framed by more trees and the faint hint of neon signs that will glow brighter later on. As you move forward again, the cobblestones feel faintly cooler underfoot, a sign that the warmth of the afternoon is giving way to the softer air of evening. The light now has that golden quality that makes every stone facade and window frame look slightly warmer, as if the whole neighborhood is exhaling at the end of the day. Before heading down the hill, you decide to stop for an early dinner at a small bistro tucked onto a corner where two narrow streets meet. Outside, a few tables sit under a simple awning, and inside you can see checkered tablecloths, framed photos of old Paris, and a chalkboard listing classic dishes in looping handwriting. You choose a table near the window where you can still see the street, but also feel the cozy hush of the room as you sit down. The chair creaks softly as you settle in, and the table feels cool and solid under your hands, grounding you in this quiet, ordinary moment. When your meal arrives, whether it's a simple plate of roast chicken and potatoes, a bowl of onion soup, or something equally comforting, the first bite is warm and steady, more about feeling at ease than about chasing anything dramatic. Conversation around you stays low and gentle, and the clink of cutlery and glasses blends with the muted sounds of the street just beyond the window, turning the whole bistro into a little bubble of calm in the middle of the hill. After you've finished and stepped back outside, the sky has deepened another shade, and the street lamps along the lanes of Montmartre are beginning to flicker on one by one. Their warm light pools softly on the cobblestones, creating patches of gold between the darker stretches of pavement, and the windows of nearby apartments glow with the first hints of evening routines behind the curtains. You follow a staircase leading downhill now, hand resting lightly on the cool metal rail as you descend toward the lower streets, where the mood gently shifts from hilltop quiet to a more grounded, everyday city pace. Behind you, you know the basilica still sits on the summit, its white stone slowly taking on the blue of the coming night, watching over the city in a way you can feel even when you're not looking at it. Ahead, more familiar names and landmarks wait along the river and in the center of Paris, ready to show you what they look and feel like under evening light. As you reach the bottom of the stairs and step onto a broader street, you can sense that you're moving into the next phase of the day, out of the heights of Montmartre and gently back toward the heart of the city, where the first true lights of night are about to appear. Stepping onto the broader street at the bottom of the hill, you feel the shift from Montmartre's quiet lanes to a more grounded, everyday rhythm of the city. Neon signs above cafes and small theaters are just starting to glow, their colors soft rather than harsh, waiting for full darkness to really shine. Cars roll past in a steady stream, headlights already on, and shop windows throw rectangles of warm light onto the sidewalk, where people move in unhurried lines. You follow the flow for a few blocks, passing a corner bistro with chalkboard menus, a newsstand with magazines clipped neatly in rows, and a bakery where staff are cleaning counters after the rush. Before long, you spot the familiar red Metro sign, marking an entrance at Pigalle or another nearby station, its letters glowing gently against the evening sky. You head down the steps, leaving the growing night sounds of the street behind as tiled walls, the scent of metal and dust, and the quiet echo of footsteps wrap around you in the station below. On the platform, the lights feel steady and comforting, and the map above the tracks lays out the city's lines in simple loops and curves, that make everything look close and manageable. You wait with a small pocket of people, some with headphones in, some chatting softly, some staring at the list of stops as if they already know them all by heart. When the train arrives and the doors slide open, you step inside and find a place near the door, feeling the gentle tug as the carriage pulls away toward the center of Paris. Stations flick by, names like Saint-Georges and Notre-Dame-de-Lorette coming and going on the signs outside the windows, until you change lines and follow the simple arrows toward a stop near the Louvre, such as Palais Royal Musée du Louvre. As you climb the final set of stairs back toward the surface, you notice how the air grows cooler and fresher again, carrying a mix of stone, faint traffic, and the soft echo of voices on the street above. When you step out of the station entrance, you find yourself in a slightly grander part of the city, with arcades, lampposts, and the long walls of the Louvre stretching away in both directions like they've been here forever. You take your time crossing the courtyard areas that lead toward the main Louvre courtyard, where the glass pyramid sits low and bright in the center, like a modern lantern in front of the old palace. The sky above is moving into full blue hour now, that deep, rich color that makes every window and street lamp look warmer by contrast. Around you, the facades of the Louvre rise in long wings of stone, pierced by tall windows and arches, decorated with statues of kings, allegorical figures, and mythological characters that look down quietly on the courtyard. As you draw closer to the pyramid, you can see your reflection and the reflections of the surrounding buildings warped softly in its glass panes, with people moving like small, slow shapes across the surface. Fountains nearby send up low jets of water that catch what's left of the light, and the sound of the splashing creates a steady, soothing backdrop under the low murmur of conversation in a dozen languages. You find a spot along the edge of one of the pools, sit for a moment, and let the scene sink in. The blend of old stone and modern glass, the layered history and the simple calm of this evening right now. After a while, you stand and drift toward the arcades that run along the Rue de Rivoli side of the Louvre, their repeating arches and colonnades creating a sheltered corridor of light and shadow. Under the arches, small shops and bookstalls display art books, prints of famous paintings, and stacks of postcards, while window displays from nearby boutiques show neat arrangements of scarves, shoes, or simple jewelry. The stone floor under the arcade feels smooth from years of footsteps, and the lamps hanging from the ceiling cast soft gold circles on the ground at regular intervals, making your walk feel almost like moving through a quiet, measured rhythm. Outside the arches, buses and cars move along Rue de Rivoli, their sounds muted by the stone and distance, while beyond them, the dark shapes of the Tuileries garden trees form a kind of soft border against the sky. Every so often, you pass a doorway leading back towards small inner courtyards, with iron gates that reveal glimpses of staircases, bicycles leaning against walls, and quiet corners that belong more to the daily life of the city than to its postcard images. You don't push to see every famous artwork tucked inside the museum tonight. Instead, you let this slow walk along the outside of the complex be its own kind of gentle visit, enough to feel connected without needing to do more. Eventually, one of the passageways leads you back out toward the river, and you follow it until you reach the Quai François Mitterrand, where the Seine runs just beyond a low stone wall. The water is darker now, holding on to the last of the day's color in a soft band of reflection, while lights from passing boats and riverside lamps slip and stretch across its surface. You lean against the wall for a moment, resting your hands on the cool stone, watching a sightseeing boat glide past with its upper deck full of people in jackets and scarves. listening quietly to a guide's voice that you can just barely hear. Up ahead, a bridge like the Pont des Arts spans the river, its walkway lined with simple railings and people strolling slowly across, stopping to look down at the water or back at the long line of the Louvre. You know that if you follow the river a little farther, you'll soon reach the Ile de la Cité and the heart of old Paris, where the evening lights will gather around ancient stones and narrow streets. For now, you push gently away from the wall, fall into an easy, steady pace along the quay, and let the mix of water, stone, and light guide you onward into the deepening evening. You fall into an easy rhythm along the quay, your footsteps matching the soft wash of the Seine against the stone below. Street lamps are fully awake now, their halos of light floating above the sidewalk and painting warm circles on the pavement. Ahead of you, the pedestrian span of the Pont des Arts appears, its simple metal railings and wooden deck leading straight across the water toward the Institut de France's rounded dome. You climb the gentle ramp onto the bridge and feel the space open around you, with nothing between you and the sky except the low outlines of the city and the soft glow from the lamps. People stroll in pairs or small groups, some pausing at the railing to point out the Eiffel Tower in the distance, others just leaning quietly on the wood as a boat passes underneath. You stop for a moment too, resting your hands on the railing, and watch the boat's lights slide along the surface of the river like slow-moving stars, knowing you still have more of this evening to walk through. When you leave the bridge, you follow the curve of the river until the arched span of Pont Neuf comes into view, its solid stone seeming to tie both banks together with quiet confidence. Despite its name, you remember that this is actually one of the oldest bridges in Paris, with carved faces called mascarons lined up along the sides, each with a slightly different expression if you look closely. You cross over on the upstream sidewalk, passing under evenly spaced lampposts while the traffic on the roadway stays at your back, more of a presence than a distraction. At the middle, you notice the equestrian statue of King Henry IV, the bronze figure poised calmly on his horse, gazing out over the river as if he's keeping an eye on the flow of time below. Just beyond, a stairway leads down to the Square du Vert Galant, the small, leaf-filled park that forms the pointed tip of the Ile de la Cité, and you follow it down step by step. At the bottom, you stand at the edge of the island with water on three sides, watching boats slide past and city lights flicker on along both banks, as if Paris is quietly putting on its nighttime jacket. Climbing back up from the park, you slip into the narrow streets of the Ile de la Cité, where old stone buildings press a little closer together and the sidewalks feel more intimate. A small flower shop spills its colours onto the pavement, buckets of tulips, roses, and green plants arranged beneath a canopy, their scents mixing in the cooler air of the evening. Nearby, the Marché aux Fleurs, the island's historic flower market, has mostly closed for the day, but a few stalls still display potted plants and metal labels, waiting for tomorrow's customers. You pass the delicate Gothic shapes of the Sainte-Chapelle complex hidden within the Palais de Justice, knowing that the chapel's famous stained glass is resting quietly behind its walls tonight, instead of blazing with coloured light. The streets here carry simple names like Rue de Lutèce and Rue de la Cité, and as you follow them, you notice small plaques on the walls explaining when certain buildings were rebuilt or which old institutions once stood here. Gradually, the flow of people around you thickens again, and the towers of Notre Dame de Paris begin to rise ahead, their dark outlines etched against the deepening blue of the sky. Stepping into the open square in front of Notre Dame, you feel the space widen suddenly, the cathedral's twin towers anchoring one end of the plaza, while the Seine flows quietly behind you. The facade glows in the evening light, soft spotlights picking out the rows of statues, kings of Judah standing above the main doors, apostles and saints arranged in arches, and the large rose window set like a delicate stone flower between the towers. Closer to the ground, carved figures depict scenes from the Last Judgment and other biblical stories, with angels, devils, and crowds of tiny sculpted people, all frozen in their roles across the lintels and tympana. You notice scaffolding and carefully lit work areas in certain places, reminders of the restoration that has been reshaping this building after the fire. But even those temporary frames feel calm and deliberate rather than jarring. A plaque near the front explains how Notre Dame has been a center of Parisian life for centuries, hosting royal events, revolutionary gatherings, and quiet daily services, while also marking the point from which road distances in France are measured. Standing on the smooth stones of the square, hearing nothing sharper than low voices, footsteps, and perhaps the faint toll of a distant bell, you let your gaze travel slowly up the facade, feeling as if the whole weight of history here is somehow holding the evening steady for you. When you finally turn away from the cathedral, you make your way toward one of the bridges leading to the left bank, perhaps the Petit Pont or Pont Saint-Michel, their railings lined with people watching the river slip past in the darkening light. Crossing over, you can feel the mood shift slightly as you enter the edge of the Latin Quarter, where streets are narrower and cafes, bookshops, and creperies cluster along the sidewalks. You wander down a side street with old stone walls and hanging signs, passing a small bookshop whose window is filled with paperbacks and worn hardcovers, and a jazz bar where a saxophone line curls softly out into the night. Eventually, you settle at a quiet cafe terrace on a calmer corner, choosing a table where you can see both the street and a slice of the river between the buildings, and you order something simple and comforting, a hot drink or a light dessert. As you sit back in the chair and wrap your hands around the warm cup or rest your fingers on the cool edge of the plate, the sounds around you settle into a gentle blend of clinking glasses, muted conversation, and distant traffic. You know there's still time for one more slow walk along the Seine and a peaceful ride back toward your hotel. But for this moment, you're content to just sit, breathe, and let Paris at night move quietly around you like a soft, steady tide. Leaving the cafe's terrace, you stand up slowly, slide the chair back into place, and take a last comfortable look at the small corner of the Latin Quarter that has been your shelter for the past little while. The street has become a little quieter now, with more people strolling than hurrying, and the glow from cafe windows spilling out in warm rectangles onto the pavement. Overhead, the sky has deepened into a rich, steady blue-black, with only a faint trace of color lingering near the horizon where the day slipped away. You start walking toward the river again, following narrow streets with names like Rue Saint-Séverin or Rue Galande, lined with bookshops, creperies, and restaurants whose signs sway gently in the night air. The smell of sugar and lemon from a crepe stand mixes with the darker scent of coffee and a hint of wine as you pass doorways where people are still finishing late dinners. Your footsteps fall into an easy cadence on the old stone, and it feels like the city is guiding you gently, without any need for maps or decisions, back toward the calm line of the Seine. Soon you reach a small open space near the river, where the Shakespeare and Company bookshop sits with its green and yellow facade, its windows lined with shelves of paperbacks and well-worn hardcovers. Even if the shop itself is closed for the night, the building still feels welcoming, like a quiet promise of stories waiting for another day. Across the street, the square René Viviani holds a few trees and benches, and from its edge you get a beautiful sideways view of Notre Dame's towers and scaffolding, softly lit against the dark sky. The river below reflects the cathedral's glow, and the bridge lights in broken streaks of gold and white that drift and shimmer with each passing boat. A gentle breeze slides along the quay, cool on your face after the warmth of the cafe, carrying faint echoes of conversation and the low hum of traffic from the opposite bank. You stand there for a while without needing to do anything, just breathing and looking, letting the sight of the cathedral and the water settle your thoughts like sediment, slowly sinking to the bottom of a clear glass. When you feel ready to move again, you notice a small ticket booth nearby for evening river cruises, its simple sign lit just enough to read without straining. You decide to take one, not as a rushed sightseeing mission, but as a slow ride through the night version of the city you've been walking all day. A staff member scans your ticket with an easy practiced motion, and you walk down the gangway to the boat, feeling the slight give of the metal under your feet as it rests against the current. On board, you find a place along the side rail on the open deck, where you can sit or stand comfortably and see both banks as the boat moves along. The engine's low vibration hums through the floor in a steady, almost hypnotic way, while people around you settle into their own quiet conversations or simply lean on the railing in silence. As the boat eases away from the quay, you feel a small but noticeable shift under your feet, as if the city has decided to show itself to you from a softer angle for this part of the evening. The boat glides under the first bridge, and overhead you see the stone arches and metal frameworks pass slowly above, lit from below in warm tones that make every curve and line stand out. On one bank, Notre Dame appears again, this time from a lower angle, its towers rising directly from the edge of the island, with the restored roof and scaffolding softly lit to blend into the overall silhouette. A recorded commentary drifts across the deck in French and English, naming buildings and bridges, but you don't feel any pressure to follow along. The words are just another gentle layer of sound. As the boat continues, you pass the long facades of the Louvre, then the Musée d'Orsay, with its tall clock faces glowing like watchful eyes over the river, each landmark slipping by at a pace slow enough to really see. The shapes of the bridges change, some with simple stone arches, others with more delicate ironwork, and every time you pass under one, the echo of the engine and the murmur of voices briefly fold in on themselves before opening back out into the open air. You watch the reflections of the lights play on the dark water and feel your mind quiet even more, as if each small wave that trails out behind the boat is carrying a little bit of leftover tension away with it. After a while, the Eiffel Tower comes back into view ahead, now lit fully in warm gold, rising above the dark outlines of the trees and buildings like a calm, steady beacon. As the boat draws closer, you may catch the moment when its sparkling lights switch on for a short burst, tiny points of white glimmering over the golden structure, like a quiet celebration that doesn't need any noise. People on deck lift phones and cameras for a few quick photos, but then many of them put their devices down again, leaning on the rail just to watch, the mood more hushed than excited. The boat eventually turns and makes its way back toward the quay near the base of the tower, slowing slightly as ropes are tossed and tied, and the gentle movement under your feet fades into stillness. You step back onto the solid stone of the riverside path near the Champ de Mars, with the tower now rising close by in its nighttime colors and the hum of evening activity gathered quietly around its base. Standing there for a moment, you know the night isn't over yet, but it has settled into its calmest phase, ready to carry you through one last unhurried walk beneath the lights, before you drift back toward your hotel and the rest your body has been moving toward all day. Leaving the boat quay near the base of the Eiffel Tower, you pause for a moment on the riverside path, letting your eyes adjust to how bright the tower looks against the dark sky. The golden light along its iron beams feels softer than it did in the daytime, almost like it's gently glowing rather than shining. Around you, clusters of people talk in low voices, taking their last photos, or simply standing still, watching the reflections of the lights tremble in the river. A bus rumbles past on the nearby road, but from where you stand, the sound is muffled by trees and distance, turned into a steady, harmless hum. The air is cooler now, brushing your face and hands with a light chill that feels refreshing after the warmth of the day. You take a slow breath, notice the faint scent of the river and distant street food, and then start walking toward the Champ de Mars lawns that stretch out from the tower's feet. You cross under the tower again, this time looking up at its lit structure from directly below, where the crisscrossing beams layer over one another like a golden web against the night. The elevators slide smoothly up and down inside the legs, their tiny cabins glowing as they carry people to and from the high platforms you visited earlier. Beneath them, you see small groups gathered near the information boards and ticket areas, their conversations softer now, as if the late hour has put a natural volume limit on the whole space. Beyond the fences, the Champ de Mars opens into long, darkened lawns, broken by paths and benches, with the tower standing like a tall lamp at one end. You follow a gravel path along the edge, listening to the crunch under your shoes and the distant click of a camera shutter here and there. In the darker stretches, the glow from the tower and nearby lampposts is enough to draw gentle shapes out of the trees, benches, and statues, giving everything a calm, almost dreamlike quality. Finding an empty bench facing the tower, you sit down and let your body sink into the backrest, feeling the wood or metal support you without asking for anything in return. From here, the Eiffel Tower fills your view, its lights steady and unhurried, with tiny specks of motion where people move along the lower platforms. The lawns in front of you are dotted with small groups sitting on blankets or standing in clusters, their voices lowered to a murmur that never quite resolves into distinct words. Now and then, a street vendor walks quietly along the path, offering simple souvenirs or small glowing toys, their soft calls blending into the rest of the evening sounds. A cooler breeze slides across the open space, brushing your face and bringing with it a faint mix of grass, stone, and distant cooking smells from a food truck or nearby stand. You sit there for a while, not timing it, just letting the sight of the tower and the rhythm of the park lull your thoughts into slower, looser shapes. When you finally stand up again, you take one last long look at the tower, knowing you'll see it again before you sleep, but wanting to fix this particular view in your memory. You leave the bench and follow a side path that leads diagonally toward the quieter residential streets behind the Champ de Mars, away from the densest clusters of visitors. Street lamps here cast smaller circles of light on the pavement, and the buildings lining the road are mostly apartments with tall windows and simple balconies, some softly lit from inside. You pass a bakery that is closed for the night, its windows still showing trays and shelves where the next morning's bread and pastries will sit, and a small corner shop with its shutters half pulled down. A cyclist rolls past you with a quiet whir of tires and a soft click of gears, giving you a brief nod before gliding on into the next pool of lamplight. The city feels gentler here, as if it's switched over from daytime display mode to a quieter setting, meant more for the people who live here than for anyone trying to rush through. As you walk, you begin to recognize that you're looping back toward the neighborhood around your hotel, even if you're not looking at a map or thinking about directions too precisely. A familiar cafe corner comes into view, its chairs stacked for the night and its awning rolled partway in, and you realize you passed it earlier when the day was still bright and busy. The sidewalks are much quieter now, with only a few people walking dogs or heading home, their footsteps echoing softly between the buildings. Somewhere nearby, a window is open on an upper floor, and you catch the faint sound of a television or music drifting out, almost like a reminder that behind each facade, there are whole lives unfolding. The air near a side street smells briefly of laundry detergent and cool stone, a small, clean scent that makes the evening feel ordinary in the best possible way. With each block, you feel your body settling into a deeper kind of calm, the kind that comes when you know you're close to home for the night, even if that home is a temporary hotel room in a city you've only just spent one full day exploring. The more you walk through these calm neighborhood streets, the more familiar they start to feel, even though you've only been here for a single day. Balconies with potted plants lean gently over the sidewalk, and the occasional glow from a kitchen window lets you see someone rinsing dishes or setting a glass on a table. You pass a small corner shop that's still open, its doorway bright and inviting in contrast to the dimmer street around it. Inside, the shelves are lined with bottled water, simple snacks, and a few local treats, all neatly arranged under buzzing fluorescent lights. You step in just long enough to pick up a bottle of water or a small chocolate bar, something easy and straightforward to bring back to your room. When you step out again, the cooler night air feels almost softer against your face, and the street seems even quieter than before, as if it waited patiently for you to come back outside. As you turn the next corner, you recognize the outline of your hotel entrance, with its soft lights above the doors and a small awning catching the glow. The lobby inside looks different at night than it did earlier, calmer and slower, with just a couple of people sitting in armchairs scrolling on their phones or talking quietly. At the reception desk, the staff member offers a friendly nod, recognizing you with that effortless hotel memory that makes you feel slightly more at home. The floor under your shoes shifts from the roughness of the sidewalk to the smooth, polished surface of the lobby, and the sounds outside are replaced by soft music and the quiet hum of air conditioning. You cross the space at an easy pace, not hurrying, just tracing a simple path from the entrance to the elevator tucked into one corner. When the elevator doors slide open, you step inside, press the button for your floor, and feel the gentle rising motion as the numbers tick upward and the hotel wraps around you like a protective shell. On your floor, the hallway is lit in a warm, steady way, with patterned carpet that softens your footsteps and doors spaced at regular intervals along both sides. As you walk toward your room, you hear only faint sounds behind some of the doors. A muffled laugh, a television turned low, the soft thump of someone moving a suitcase. At your door, the keycard light flashes green with a little beep, and the handle gives easily under your hand as you step back into your temporary home for the night. Inside, the room is just as you left it, but it feels slightly different now, touched by the glow of a single lamp you switch on near the bed. You set your small shop bag on the desk, place the water within easy reach, and take a slow look around, noticing how the quiet here is thicker than the hush on the streets outside. Drawn toward the window, you walk over and gently pull the curtain aside, looking out to see the tops of buildings, a slice of the Champ de Mars, and, if you're lucky, a glimpse of the Eiffel Tower shining softly in the distance. From this height, the city feels calmer than it did at your feet, as if someone has turned the volume down on everything except the essentials. You can see a few cars sliding along the nearby streets, their headlights tracing slow lines of light that come and go without urgency. Some windows across the way are still lit, each one holding its own small world. A person reading in a chair, someone leaning on a balcony, a family finishing the last of their evening routine. You stand there for a minute or two, just breathing, letting your shoulders relax as you think about the path you took today. From the airport to the tower, along the river, up the hill of Montmartre, and back down again. The day feels full, but not crowded, like a story told at the right pace, with enough room for you to be present in each moment, rather than rushing past it. When you finally let the curtain fall back into place, it's with the sense that the city can keep glowing out there on its own, while you start turning inward toward rest. You move through the simple motions of getting ready for the night, setting your phone to the side, placing your clothes neatly over a chair, and taking a moment in the bathroom to splash cool water on your face or brush your teeth. The small sounds in the room, the running tap, the click of the light switch, the soft rustle of fabric feel oddly soothing, like the closing notes of a long, gentle song. Back near the bed, you adjust the pillows, straighten the blanket, and switch off the brighter light, leaving only a softer, warmer glow to brighten the room. You can still hear a faint trace of the city through the window, distant engines, a random voice, maybe the quiet rumble of the metro far below. But everything is softened by distance and walls. Standing there beside the bed, you can feel your body growing heavier in a pleasant way, as if every step of the day has finally decided it's okay to melt into the mattress waiting behind you. In the next part of this journey, you'll let yourself lie down fully, sink into the covers, and drift into the deepest, quietest part of this Paris night, with the city outside keeping watch while you rest. You let yourself ease down onto the bed, feeling the mattress rise gently to meet the weight of your body. The sheets are cool and smooth at first touch, then quickly start to feel warm and familiar as you settle in. A single bedside lamp casts a soft circle of light across the pillows and the little table beside you, leaving the rest of the room in a comfortable half shadow. Through the closed window, you can just barely hear the city. A faint hum of traffic, a distant car passing, maybe a soft murmur of voices carried up from the street. None of the sounds are sharp or demanding. They're just there like a quiet background track that reminds you the city is still out there, moving slowly without needing anything from you. In here, though, this room belongs completely to you for the night. A small, still bubble in the middle of Paris, where you don't have to do anything but rest. You pull the blanket up over yourself, feeling the gentle weight settle across your legs, your waist, your chest. Like a soft, steady hand, reminding your body it's safe to let go. As your head sinks into the pillow, the muscles at the back of your neck relax a little more, and your jaw loosens without you having to force it. Your shoulders drift down toward the mattress, no longer holding up the day, no longer bracing for whatever might come next. You notice how your arms feel heavier now, how your hands rest easily wherever they've landed, fingers uncurling on their own, as if they're finally allowed to stop. Your legs feel the same way, no longer carrying you up staircases or across bridges, just stretching out under the blanket in a long, comfortable line. Every slow breath seems to smooth out a little more tension, like waves washing gently over sand and erasing the footprints of everything you did today. If little pieces of the day float back into your mind, they arrive gently now, more like soft slides in a calm show than bright flashes of memory. You might see yourself again on the glass floor of the Eiffel Tower, looking down at the tiny figures below, or leaning on the railing at the Trocadéro, watching the tower perfectly framed against the sky. Another moment might drift in from Montmartre, the steps in front of Sacré-Cœur, the city spread out below, the sound of a guitar or accordion playing somewhere behind you. Maybe you catch a glimpse of the Louvre courtyard at blue hour, the glass pyramid glowing while the fountains whispered around it, or the dark river carrying the lights of the boats past the Île de la Cité. You don't need to hold on to any of these images. You can just let them pass through, like lights sliding across water, there for a second and then gone. Whatever your mind chooses to replay, it's all part of the same gentle story now. One long, slow day that is already beginning to soften around the edges as sleep comes closer. As you lie there, it might feel a little comforting to remember that you weren't alone in this walk through Paris, even if you listened by yourself. There are other people in other places and time zones who also drifted along this same path, from the airport to the tower, up the hill and down again, along the river and back to a quiet room like this. Some of them leave small messages under these journeys, kind words for people they will never meet, just so someone else who can't sleep feels a little less alone when they press play. If you want to, you can be part of that too, liking, subscribing, or dropping a gentle comment about where you're listening from, and maybe a soft wish of good rest for the next person who finds their way here. Thank you for spending this day in Paris with me, for letting your mind wander through its streets and along its river, while your body stayed still and safe wherever you are. You're always welcome to come back to this journey, or explore another city whenever you need a calm escape, knowing that each time you do, it gets a little easier for your body to recognize that it's allowed to relax. For now, you don't have to listen closely or follow every detail anymore. You can just let the sound of my voice blur into the background, like distant city lights fading into a soft glow. Your breath stays slow and steady. Your body grows heavier and warmer under the blanket, and the space between your thoughts stretches wider with every quiet moment that passes. If you drift off and wake up again for a second, that's all right. Paris will still be here in the back of your mind, waiting calmly at the edge of sleep. Somewhere outside, the city keeps its own rhythm. Trains running, boats sliding along the Seine, the Eiffel Tower shining over the rooftops, but none of it needs anything from you now. All you need to do is rest, to let go just a little more with each breath, and allow yourself to slip deeper into this night, knowing you are held and safe, and allowed to be completely still. Sleep well, and I'll see you next time we dream, sleep, and travel together.